Hello, young humans. Guess what day it is? Fourth grade library day. So last week we left off, Kate and Tom. Kate got a train for her birthday, remember that? From their rich, eccentric uncle. And then last week, Kate got in a big yelling match with her mom and got sent into her room for mouthing off. And then the train started glowing and steaming, and so she and Tom snuck out to check it out, and then they got taken away by the train and ended up at a train station in the middle of nowhere with animals on the platform with train tickets in their mouths. That's where we left off. So we are now on chapter 6. Click, bing! The Silver Arrow slowed, pulled smoothly into the station, puffed out a huge cloud of white steam, and stopped with a loud hiss. There was an old-fashioned train clock on the platform, the round kind with a light inside that sits on top of a lamp post. It was late, almost 10 o'clock at night. Tom came over to Kate's side to look at the animals. The animals looked back at them. They didn't run away the way wild animals usually did. They just stood there. It was like a dream. The air was so cold now they could see their breath in the lights of the station. Finally, Tom said, "Hi." Kate wasn't always grateful for Tom's presence. In fact, a lot of the time, she preferred his absence. But at that moment, she was. She knew she tended to hesitate and overthink things. Tom didn't have a problem. He would just blurt out any thought that came into his head. A small gray fox bent down and placed its ticket carefully on the platform. "Hi," it said. "Hi," Kate said. "Been a long time since a train came through here," the fox said. "Very long," said the badger, transferring its ticket to its paw. Kate thought of saying, "Is that so?" or "How about that?" but rejected both ideas as fatally uncool. "How long?" Tom said. "About 30 years, the badger said. "Where have you been? You're very late." Here's a picture of the animals on the platform. "Wait, just how can you be talking?" Kate asked. "Oh, I know," the fox said. "We do talk sometimes, just not around humans. Frankly, we don't meet a lot of humans who are worth talking to. No offense." Kate supposed that was fair. "But you haven't been standing here waiting this whole time, have you?" she said. "Like the whole 30 years? "Oh, no, of course not. We just look in here once in a while to check. I mean, we're animals. It's not like we have jobs." "I guess not." "You need to get over to the rail yard to pick up some cars, and fast," a hare said. "It's almost too late." "The rail yard," Kate said. "Okay, thank you, we'll do that." It sounded like good advice. "See you soon then." The animals all picked up their tickets and went back to waiting, and with a jerk and a loud hiss, the Silver Arrow moved off down the track again. Tom pulled the whistle. 2 quick blasts. Boom, boom. Kate clanged the bell for good measure. They quickly left the lights of the station behind. "Did you see that?" Kate said. "I totally saw that," Tom said. "Those animals talked. To us." Not only that, and that was incredible enough, but what they'd said had made Kate's ears prick up. This wasn't just a joyride. Kate and Tom were going somewhere specific, namely to the rail yard, wherever that was, and for a reason, namely to pick up some cars. A joyride would have been fine, obviously, but this was even better. It wasn't just fun and games. They were on a mission. They had a job to do. The glow of the firelight was nice, and it was starting to feel cozy in the cab. The air smelled like hot engine oil, a savory, interesting smell. Everything was made of brass and leather and wood and glass and felt very old, like the kind of place that would usually be behind a velvet rope at a museum. "I wonder who's driving this thing," Tom said. "I mean, we're not. Who knows?" Suddenly, there was a click and the bing of a bell behind them, kind of like the click, bing of an old-fashioned typewriter. Kate hadn't noticed it before, but on the wall of the cab, in among the pipes and dials and levers, was a little loop of paper. It unrolled out of the innards of the train at one end and then scrolled back into them at the other. A message had just been printed on it. "I know." As soon as they'd read the words, the message scrolled out of sight, and more paper scrolled out with another click, bing. It really was like a typewriter, or a very low-tech printer. Here's a picture of what it looks like. So the paper comes out here at the top with this whatever's printed on it, and then it scrolls back in underneath. More words appeared, neatly typed. The following are instructions for operating this steam engine. Uh-oh, Kate thought. Here we go. Click. Bing! More words. Operating a steam engine is really complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to teach you how to do it. Great. Tom rolled his eyes. Train school. Click. Bing! It's not train school. This is called learning. When done properly, it can actually be quite enjoyable, though admittedly it's hardly ever done properly. Tom folded his arms. He looked unconvinced. Look, learning things is incredibly hard and unpleasant. If it wasn't, then everybody would do it all the time, and then everybody would know everything, wouldn't they? Kate shrugged. I guess so. You guess right. What you need is a good teacher. Fortunately, I am one. Right, Tom said under his breath. I am right. How can you even be talking? Kate asked, keenly aware that she'd also just asked a fox that exact same question. I don't know, I just am. Are you like a giant metal robot or something? I don't know. I mean, aren't you just a robot made of flesh and bones, if you think about it? Kate thought about it. The train did kind of have a point. For now, your only job is giving me more coal. The coal is in the tender. Just shovel it into the firebox. The firebox is the box with the fire in it. I figured that, said Tom. Less talking, more shoveling. There were 2 short shovels and 2 pairs of work gloves hanging on pegs in the tender. They put on the gloves and shoveled chunky pieces of black coal into the firebox. It took only a few shovelfuls before the fire started to get hot and glowing again. Job well done. It was surprisingly satisfying. So, Kate said, I guess it's a talking train. I guess so. Click. Bing! I guess so. Chapter 7. The Rail Yard. The train chuffed along. Kate thought it chuffed a little faster and more vigorously now that they'd given it more coal. She'd never had a pet, because between them, her parents were allergic to every single animal under the sun. But it felt like she imagined feeding a pet would feel, except that it was a giant metal pet that you rode inside. Snow drifted down through the trees outside, which was very odd considering that it was supposed to be summer, but not odder than anything else that was going on. The train kept talking to them. It explained how the throttle worked, and it showed them where the brakes were. Then it told them to look out the window. Something was happening out there. The track they were on split into 2 tracks. Then it split again and again. And those tracks split too, so that in a minute, one track had become dozens of tracks curving away on either side. And soon they were in a huge open clearing completely filled with darkly gleaming rails like a giant plate of steel spaghetti. Kate and Tom carefully reduced the throttle and applied the brakes, and the Silver Arrow chuffed and chuffed slower and slower till it gave out a huge steamy sigh and stopped. All around them on the tracks were parked dozens and dozens of train cars, maybe hundreds, all different colors and shapes. Some were short and stubby, others were long and lean. Some looked old and dusty and rusty, while others were shiny and new. It was late, but Kate felt more awake than she ever had in her life. This must be the rail yard, Kate said. That thing the fox was talking about. He reminded me of Foxy Jones, Tom said. What do you think we should do now? They looked at the paper where the train posted its messages, but it was blank and silent. Outside, nothing moved. Lamps cast a soft, eerie light over everything and lit up the falling snow in a great white dome. Kate suddenly felt nervous being out in the middle of nowhere like this with no adults around. But then someone came walking briskly toward them across the snowy tracks. It was Uncle Herbert. Here he comes. He's got a clipboard. Uncle Herbert! It was so good to see him. They'd only just met him today, but it felt like seeing an old friend. He was carrying a clipboard and wearing a dorky conductor's hat and a bright yellow parka to match his yellow suit. He stopped and looked up at them. Kate, Tom, good to see you. You made it this far. Uncle Herbert, Tom said. We went through the woods and didn't crash, and then we saw a station and it was full of animals and they talked and then the train talked. Tom said this as one long continuous word. Uncle Herbert didn't look particularly surprised at any of it. How did you get here ahead of us? Kate asked. More magic, Uncle Herbert said. Listen, this is all a huge mistake. None of it was supposed to happen, or at least not yet. The train left much too soon. Maybe it had to. Maybe it couldn't wait. I don't know, but I don't like it. We'll be lucky if we don't all end up at the roundhouse. But it's too late. You can't go back, so you'll just have to go forward and do your best. You've got a schedule to keep now. Wait, we do? Kate said. We need to put together a train for you right away. Fortunately, no one's come through here for years, so they've got just about everything in stock. What cars do you want? Cars? You mean like train cars? Yes. You're really just going to have to give us a bunch of train cars? As with overly round numbers, experience had taught Kate to be suspicious of people offering her free stuff. I gave you a steam engine, didn't I? Okay. What are the choices? Doesn't work like that. This isn't a restaurant. You're not ordering off a menu. It's your train. You have to make it up. Kate and Tom glanced at each other. May I suggest, Uncle Herbert said delicately, that you begin with some passenger cars? He did actually sound like some kind of a waiter at a fancy restaurant. Sure, Kate said. That sounds good. Yeah, said Tom. 2 passenger cars? Great, Kate said. 2 passenger cars. Excellent. What else? What other kinds of train cars were there? Her mind went completely blank. She really was not one of those kids who was super into trains. A dining car? Dining car. Good. Uncle Herbert wrote it down with on his clipboard. Kate couldn't think of anything else. Tom, you pick something. We could have 2 dining cars. Well, what's the point of that? Well, like 2 different restaurants. If we got bored of one, we could go to the other. Kate thought that was ridiculous, but Uncle Herbert wrote it down. Second dining car. Good. Need a kitchen car to go with it. 2 kitchen cars. Tom was getting into it now. Okay, what else? There was a long silence. A sleeper car, Kate said. That's a thing, right? Sleeper car. I can't think of anything else. Yes, Uncle Herbert said. You can. Kate thought of something. It was silly, but she couldn't come up with anything else. I would like a library car, she said. Like a car that's all full of books with big leather chairs and things where you can go and just read. She was a little embarrassed, but Uncle Herbert didn't turn a hair. Library car. He wrote it down. What else? Movie car, Tom said. No movie car. What? You can watch movies at home. But she got a library car, and I'm sure she'll let you use it. This is such a rip-off. Fine. I'll give you your money back. Oh, wait. That's right. You didn't give me any money. You're getting a completely free train. I want a weapons car, then. 2 weapons cars. 1 for swords, 1 for guns. No. Video? Nope. Internet? Nope. Fine. Tom folded his arms. I would like a candy car, and that's my final offer. A candy car? Uncle Herbert looked so shocked that Kate laughed. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Oh, come on, Tom said. It'd be awesome. I'm kidding, Uncle Herbert said. You can totally have a candy car. What else? A swimming pool car, Kate said. It was worth a try, especially if candy cars were a thing. Why not? All right, she said. Read that back. 2 passenger cars, Uncle Herbert read. 2 dining cars, 2 kitchen cars, sleeper car, library car, candy car, swimming pool car. 2, 4, 10 cars. That seems about right. Maybe a tiny bit short. Ooh, let's have a flat car, Tom said. Just like a plain, flat one. We can stand on it and pretend we're surfing. And we should have box cars, too. Trains always have box cars. Uncle Herbert wrote on his clipboard. I think, Kate said, we should have a mystery car. Like we don't know what's in it, but it's something cool. She thought she was pushing her luck with that one, but he wrote it down with the rest. That's all I got, Kate said. Me too. Needs one more thing, Uncle Herbert said. What? Come on, every train has one. Oh, a caboose! Now you're done. He turned to go. Uncle Herbert? Tom looked like he had a thought, and he was trying hard to formulate it into a question. Why are we here? You mean here in the rail yard? No, I mean, like, why are we on a train in the middle of nowhere? Where are we going? It was a fair question. Kate wondered why she hadn't thought to ask herself. She had the dizzy feeling of being caught up in something much larger than she'd realized. Like she was a player in an enormous game, but she didn't know the rules yet. Or like she happened to glance out the window of a building and discovered that she was really much higher up than she'd realized. You're going on an adventure, Uncle Herbert said. Isn't that what you wanted? Yeah. Tom didn't look completely satisfied with that, but Uncle Herbert just waved the clipboard. I'll get this up to the dispatcher. Just remember, keep the water tank full and never let the fire go out. And keep an eye out for the twilight star. He turned to go and then stopped again, peering up at them in the darkness. Wait a second, something's wrong. You two look floppy, droopy. His lack of experience with children was showing again. We're tired, Uncle Herbert, Kate said. It's really late. Oh, he rubbed his chin. That's right. Probably it's past your bedtime. Why don't we hitch up the passenger cars and the sleeper car and you can go to bed? Like, sleep here on the train? What about Mom and Dad? I'll explain it to them. They're going to go mental, Tom said. You realize that, like they will literally take leave of their actual senses. Might be good for them, Uncle Herbert said. They're much too sane, those two. Nighty-night. With that, he walked away, presumably to go find the dispatcher, whoever that was. Suddenly, Kate could barely keep her eyes open. She had had no idea she was so exhausted. It was late, and about 2 months' worth of stuff had happened to her in one day, and it was all catching up with her at once. She sat on her little fold-down seat and leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. She wondered what Uncle Herbert had meant when he'd said that about magic. It was impossible. There was no such thing. But at the same time, it didn't seem like the kind of thing that you just said. Evidence to the contrary was mounting up like snow in a blizzard. More wisdom from Grace Hopper floated through her mind. If they put you down somewhere with nothing to do, go to sleep. You don't know when you'll get any more. Kate couldn't have said how much time passed before she felt a gentle bump. That must be the first passenger car being hitched up, she thought, without opening her eyes. And then, bump. Passenger car number 2. I hope the animals will like them, she thought. And then, bump. That must be the sleeper car. As if in a dream, she and Tom climbed down out of the cab. They barely even noticed the click, bing, of the train saying, good night. It was beyond strange being out in the middle of the night in a rail yard that shouldn't have existed, in a winter that should have been summer. But Kate was too tired to care. The night air was freezing, and the ground was covered with a mix of snow and gravel that was extremely painful to walk on in bare feet. Train cars loomed over them, big as houses, casting sharp black shadows in the artificial light. Past the passenger cars, they found the sleeper car. It was painted a comforting cream color, like ivory or very fancy paper. It had 2 doors, one at each end. The first door had Tom neatly lettered on it. The second said Kate. When Kate got to her door, it opened automatically, and clever little metal steps folded down, much easier than getting into the engine. Inside it was warm and the lights were dim. On one wall was a little sink with a mirror over it. Next to that was a hook with a soft white towel hanging on it, and a holder for an enamel cup with a toothbrush and toothpaste in it. Everything was ever so slightly miniaturized to fit in a train compartment. It was like being a doll in a very expensive dollhouse. There is a picture of her cabin. There was a closet with a soft Kate-sized robe and slippers already in it, and a little drawer for a pair of neatly folded blue and white striped flannel pajamas. Whoever had put all this together was extremely well organized, Kate thought. She was so tired she just splashed some water on her face and dried it with a towel. The pajamas felt cool and soft and clean. She didn't brush her teeth, because what was even the point of getting to sleep on a magic train if you had to brush your teeth? There was a little bed that folded down from the wall with a little bookshelf next to it in case you wanted to read before you went to sleep, which ordinarily she might have done, but not tonight. She was too tired even to read. She turned out the light, snugged the blanket up over her, and took a deep, contented breath. The sleeper car smelled like clean linen and scented wood. There was a window over the bed so you could look up and see the stars. A tiny door opened in one wall, and Tom's face peered through it from the other half of the sleeper. "Hey," he said. "Pretty nice, right?" "So awesome." Tom paused for a second. "Hey, is it okay if I leave this open?" Sometimes she forgot that Tom was 2 years younger than she was. He'd never even been on a sleepover except with their grandparents, and now he was going to sleep on a talking train in the middle of a mysterious rail yard. It might even make her feel better, too. Definitely okay. Good night, Tom. Good night. Kate closed her eyes and slept. We're going to stop there. Next week, Chapter 8. Tickets, please. Thanks for coming, guys. I'll see you soon.